Hello and welcome. I am Poet and this is Storytelling and Tabletop RPGs. Today we are going to talk about a most important question. Why do we tell stories? As the famous author Margaret Atwood once said, you are never going to kill storytelling because it is built in the human plan. We come with it. Now let's see why. As we briefly explored last time, stories are a fundamental way we learn new concepts, facts, and truths. It is our most dominant way to understand the world. After we are starting to perceive the world with our senses, we try to make sense out of it. What happens if I touch a thing? What happens if I throw the ball? Can I sit on a cat? Can I kiss the door? Oh dear heavens, how fragile we humans are. Precious, fragile, and yet enduring. A marvelous creature with no purpose, yet every opportunity. And that gets to the point. Marvels, not a cinematic universe or comic book marvels, but marvels in general. We learn them from a very young age. They are meant to teach us. They are meant to teach us things that we cannot learn on our own, lest we risk our health, freedom, future, or in fact life. On the other hand, we use stories to influence each other. The 20th century and the 21st century are horrific examples for mass propaganda. Stories you and I tell each other are nothing compared to the intense machinery of governments, corporations, and institutions of any kind. The narratives are vast and sadly not always noble or kind. This tool is used to make it possible for us to hurt each other and sadly kill each other. Oof, that was a downturner. But we have to think about the why. Why do these things work? Why do we engage in stories, even small and unimportant ones? Instagram stories, TikTok, shorts and videos, movies, series, books, and in the end, history. It goes back to the fundamental truth that we learned by storytelling. We like stories. They make inherently sense. They are obedient to our unreasonable desire for logic, consistency, and rules. They give sense to an otherwise senseless world. And we enjoy that. Even when they break the rules, as long as they are obedient enough to our expectations, we will enjoy them. A good story helps us to find ourselves if we are lost. They can give expression to feelings that we otherwise wouldn't be able to express. They make us feel connected. They represent us, our values, and what we want from this world. But they can also help us escape. They can numb pain and give refuge in times of despair. Even more powerful, they can give hope when the world seems hopeless. There's a power to them that no one can take away. They are, as Miss Atwood explained, unkillable. By putting these things together, we can classify the reasons in 3 categories. Stories that teach, meaning stories that teach you about facts, ideals, values, expectations, and anything else that can be taught. Secondly, stories that provide relief. They can be stories that emphasize with your pain. Think about a movie about heartbreak and suffering when you just recently had a rough breakup yourself. Or stories that help you find refuge. Maybe a cartoon someone watches while their parents are arguing in the next room and probably getting divorced. But they can also be stories that bring you joy, even without the acute need of stress relief. They help you feel good, for example an action movie or even a horror movie that spikes your adrenaline levels. Thirdly, stories that provide hope. These are stories that assure us that we will win or that after the hard times, there will come an era of peace. But they also can be small in size, yet important to us. If someone suffered a debilitating illness and is in recovery, they have to believe in a better future. Otherwise, there will be no recovery at all. Although these 3 categories exist, a story can have all 3 of them. This is because either it is being told that way, or more importantly, it is being understood that way. For our purposes, we will mostly focus on the stories that provide relief part, since they are almost always the main ingredient of any tabletop RPG story. If you don't put in the fun, your players won't come back. So, that being said, it's time for the advice section. Preparing your story, be it in a one-shot or a campaign, you have to ask yourself the question, why do I want to tell it? Your first response might be, Because I want to, poet. Stupid you, asking simple questions. Well, why do you want to? Maybe because you have this great idea about a rebellion fighting an evil empire. Maybe you want to spend some time with your friends and you all enjoy playing as heroes fighting generic enemies. It could be that you want to explore some kind of emotion that you normally don't get to. Maybe by playing a horror game, a thriller, a romantic drama, or anything else. While the surface level answer to the question, why do you do X for fun, will always be because I like it, there are deeper answers to be found. Maybe you enjoy a certain gameplay mechanic, or you are just really interested in telling a story of which you do not know the outcome yet. To prepare your game means that you make sure you have at least some idea why you and your players are sitting at a table. Do you like to explore the unexplored, be impressed by the creativity of those around you, and contribute your own perspective to a story you all share with each other? There are no definite answers, and you will find yourself agreeing to more than one statement. But be sure that your story focuses on the reasons your whole table can agree on. Otherwise, you will always have the feeling of something that is missing. Something you cannot quite grasp, and therefore cannot fill. Also, check in with your group after a while whether or not you all still agree. Let's say you and your friends are studying a game centered around a young group of rebels who fight a tyrannic overlord. The heroes are powerful individuals who have no qualm fighting the villain's henchmen. But do you want to put in the big questions of how much can we sacrifice without crossing the line? What does it mean to fight for the cause, and how will your characters cope with setback or even the darkest hour? If you do not know what the darkest hour is, check out the video from OSP, highly recommended. Maybe you want just a light-hearted story, or you want to include the darker themes, but only in moderation. These are things that you can discuss in Session 0. This series will have a deeper look into Session 0 later down the line. Once Gamemaster and players have discussed what kind of story they want to tell, you have to go down to the mechanics. In other words, what game system are you going to use? Today, we learned that storytelling is our way to understand the world. We are physiologically programmed to like stories. They help us to make sense of things that are otherwise not easy to comprehend or dangerous to find out by ourselves. There are different reasons why we tell our stories that can broadly be categorized in to teach, to relieve, and to hope. To prepare your game accordingly, you have to understand what kind of stories you and your players want to tell. To do that, we will take a meta perspective and understand how and why they are useful for telling stories. But for now, I want to leave you with the words of Jonathan Gottschall from his book, The Storytelling Animal. We are a species addicted to story. Even when the body goes to sleep, the mind stays up all night, telling itself stories.